So, why is unemployment bad? Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. One is sort of the social aspect, and secondly is the economic aspect. First of all, people rely on their jobs for their sense of self-worth. So if you meet someone, a lot of times they say, what do you do? They're asking, what is your job? If you don't have a job, you don't feel like you're contributing to society. And some people would actually rather have a job than just get money for free. Right? So a lot of people have an innate sense of wanting to work, wanting to contribute, wanting to do something that they enjoy, and also get paid for it. So if you take away people's job, there's going to be societal problems that result. So it can be psychological, and it can also, we can have sociological detrimental effects due to unemployment. So if you've ever been through a neighborhood where the factory closed, where the steel mill closed, a lot of people are out of work, you tend to find crime, you tend to see poverty, stress on families, stress on children, and stress on the people who can't find jobs. So society can have numerous effects rooted in poverty as a result. And so unemployment is bad because when people lose their jobs, they're hurt. All right? Tied to that is, if you recall, labor is one factor of production. Unemployment is unused labor. All right? Labor is different from capital and land as a factor of production because labor is people. We care about people. We care about people's lives. You know, most classrooms, if I'm talking and using a whiteboard, there might be a computer right here that's shut off. I'm not using it. There's a computer that's shut off, and nobody really cries about that. If you have a person who's not working, we care about that person's well-being. So labor, because we're humans, we care more about humans than machines. We care about unused labor more than we care about unused capital or unused land. Now, that's sort of the sociological part of labor. The political part of labor is that labor votes. If you have unemployed people, politicians listen. And so there's going to be more emphasis on lowering unemployment, not only because of the fact that we care about people's happiness, but people's happiness translates into politicians keeping or losing their jobs. So therefore, you're going to have labor counting more because politicians who write the rules and have policies to control unemployment are going to listen to the workers more than they listen to other forms of production. Now that said, labor goes into production. You may have seen something called a production function in which we add labor and capital and use technology to make output. But even if you had, you can imagine that labor is used to make things. People work at factories. People work in offices. If you don't have the people working, you're not going to have the things produced. So less labor means less production. Less labor means less GDP. Less labor means less products that we enjoy. It means less utility. It means less well-being for society. So if you don't put the inputs into the production process, you're not going to get the outputs. Therefore, if you are using resources and you're not using all your labor resources, you are not going to get as much out. So GDP and production are hurt by unused labor. Unemployment means a lower standard of living, even if you do have a job. All right, so that's why we care about this number so much. And if you've been paying attention to economics in the past 2 years, or even longer, the past 5 years, you've probably seen that this unemployment rate is something that's always talked about. People worry about their jobs, and people will look at this specific number as to what we should be fixing in terms of our society. So normally, talk about this in a little bit, the unemployment rate has a sort of target that it should be at. You think, well, why not zero? Shouldn't everyone have a job? The problem is that you're never going to have 0% unemployment. In fact, that would be a problem because you kind of need to have people moving between jobs. If it were impossible to find workers because there's nobody looking for a job, businesses would wind up having to pay more for people talk about unemployment and inflation, you'll find that low unemployment means high inflation, prices go up. The story is that if you can leave your job and your boss knows it, your boss knows there's no one there who can take your job if you quit, you can just ask for a raise. All right, so one thing we would talk about is that if you had 0% unemployment, bosses would be forced to give raises, and that would push prices up. If prices go up, that would be inflation. So it's not just zero, it's anything where unemployment rate is too low. If unemployment is too low, it's actually bad for the economy. So there's a sweet spot. There's probably the best unemployment rate, and this is for the United States. Other countries have a different number. But we don't go for 0% unemployment. The United States, in good times, tries to have 5% unemployment. All right, so if it goes below 5, it's going to be bad because it's going to push prices up. And if it goes too high, it's going to be bad because then you have all the problems I just talked about. So 5% unemployment is the target rate. Now, given the Great Recession that started in 2008, unemployment has continued to be higher than 5%. So about the height of it was about 9 or 10%, and slowly dropped over time. And right around the election in 2012, it dropped below 8%. And then in October 2013, it was about 7.8% for the United States. So it's still between 7 and 8%. It's still higher than it should be. And so you see a lot of policies, you see all these fiscal and monetary policies designed to get unemployment down to eliminate this problem. Other countries, this is different. Some countries would love to have 7 or 8% unemployment. For the U.S., by historical standards, 5% is good, and we're still a little bit too high. Now, sometimes this 5% rate is called the natural rate of unemployment. And that's just saying that if the economy is doing the best it can, there's always going to be people in between jobs for various reasons that we'll talk about. But if you eliminate all the problems that the government can fix, you're going to wind up still with people out of a job. There's always going to be people quitting, getting fired, moving between jobs. You'll always have people training for the next job. So there's always going to be somebody out of work who would like to have a job. The government's going to do all it can and get rid of the extra unemployment. But it's not going to get it any lower than this so-called natural rate.